Max had always been curious about the strange iron gate at the far end of his grandmother's sprawling backyard. It was tall and ornate, overgrown with ivy, and never opened. "Stay away from there," his grandmother would warn whenever Max asked about it. But she never explained why, and that only fueled his imagination. One clear, crisp night, Max was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The moonlight streamed through the curtains, casting eerie shapes on the walls. Suddenly, a soft chiming sound caught his attention. It seemed to be coming from the garden. Slipping out of bed, Max tiptoed through the dark house and out the back door. The cool night air made him shiver, but he pressed on, following the chime. To his astonishment, the iron gate was slightly ajar, a faint golden glow spilling from the other side. Max hesitated, but his curiosity got the better of him. He pushed the gate open and stepped through. What he saw took his breath away. Beyond the gate was a magnificent garden bathed in moonlight. Every plant and flower glowed faintly, as if lit from within. Silver vines curled around trees that sparkled like crystal, and ponds shimmered with a light that seemed to come from the water itself. Strange creatures flitted about, winged rabbits, glowing foxes, and birds with feathers that looked like tiny stars. "Who are you?" came a voice, startling Max. He turned to see a girl about his age, dressed in flowing clothes that looked like they were made of petals. Her hair shimmered like starlight. "I'm Max," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is this place?" "This is the Midnight Garden," the girl said with a smile. "Only those who truly believe in magic can enter." Max felt a thrill of excitement. "What's your name?" he asked. "I'm Lyra," she said, "the guardian of this garden." Lyra explained that the Midnight Garden was a sanctuary for magical creatures and plants that couldn't survive in the ordinary world. "But it's also a place of great power," she said. "That's why the gate is usually locked, to protect it from those who might harm it." As the night wore on, Lyra showed Max around the garden. They fed glowing berries to a family of luminescent deer and sailed across a lake of liquid silver in a boat shaped like a leaf. Max felt as though he had stepped into one of his dreams. But as dawn approached, the garden began to fade. The glowing plants dimmed, and the magical creatures disappeared into the shadows. "You must go now," Lyra said softly. "The garden only exists between midnight and dawn. But you can come back, if you keep the secret." Max nodded, his heart heavy. He stepped back through the gate, which closed behind him with a soft click. The garden was gone, and the iron gate was once again overgrown with ivy. The next morning, Max's grandmother gave him a knowing look but said nothing. He didn't tell her about the Midnight Garden, but he knew she must have once been there too. From that night on, Max would wait for the soft chime that signaled the garden's call. The Midnight Garden had become his secret, a place where wonder and magic were always waiting. Over the years, Max returned to the Midnight Garden many times. Each visit brought new wonders and new friends. A tiny dragon that perched on his shoulder, a tree that sang when the wind passed through its branches, and flowers that whispered secrets if you leaned close enough. But Max also began to notice something strange. The garden seemed tired. Some of the flowers wilted faster than they used to. The shimmering ponds grew dimmer, and fewer magical creatures came to greet him. One night, Max found Lyra sitting by the largest tree in the garden, her usually radiant face clouded with worry. "What's wrong?" Max asked, sitting beside her. "The garden is fading," Lyra said softly. "Its magic is tied to belief, and fewer people in the world believe in the impossible. Without that belief, the Midnight Garden cannot survive." Max's heart sank. He couldn't imagine losing the garden. It had become a part of him. "Is there anything I can do to help?" he asked. Lyra looked at him, her starlit eyes filled with hope. "There is one way," she said, "but it's not easy. You must share the magic of the garden with others. Not by bringing them here, that would disrupt its balance, but by reminding them to believe in wonder and possibility. If enough people remember how to dream, the garden will thrive again. Max nodded, determination lighting up his face. "I'll do it," he said. From that night on, Max began telling stories. At first, he shared them with his family, weaving tales of glowing foxes and singing trees. Then, he told his classmates and neighbors, spinning the magic of the Midnight Garden into bedtime stories and whispered secrets. As the years went by, Max's stories traveled farther than he ever imagined. They became books, then plays, then films. People all over the world began to wonder about the strange and beautiful Midnight Garden, even if they didn't fully believe. And the garden responded. When Max returned, he found it more vibrant than ever. The flowers glowed brighter, the ponds sparkled like diamonds, and new creatures, ones he had never seen before, danced through the trees. Lyra met him at the gate, her smile radiant.
"You've done it," she said.
"The garden is alive again, thanks to you." Max grinned. "It wasn't just me," he said. "It was everyone who dared to dream." From then on, Max knew the Midnight Garden would never fade, as long as there were people willing to believe in magic. And though he grew older, he never stopped visiting the garden or sharing its wonders with the world. The garden, in turn, remained timeless, a place where dreams and reality intertwined, forever waiting for those brave enough to step through the gate. Years passed, and Max grew into an adult, but the Midnight Garden remained as vibrant and magical as the first night he'd stepped through its gate. He had kept the secret of the garden all these years, but now, he knew he could never let it fade again. The belief he'd helped rekindle had kept the magic alive. One evening, Max found himself standing before the gate once more. It was a calm night, the stars overhead shimmering like scattered diamonds. As he pushed open the gate, he realized it wasn't just for him anymore. He had passed on the stories, the belief, and now it was time to share the garden itself. Lyra was waiting for him, her eyes filled with warmth and understanding. She had watched him grow, seen the world around him change, but she knew that, deep down, Max was still the same boy who had wandered into the garden that fateful night. "You've done well," she said, her voice soft and knowing. "But now, it's time to share this garden with the world." Max nodded. He understood. The garden had been a place of refuge, wonder, and magic for him, but it was meant for more than just one person. It was a place of hope, a reminder of what could be if people dared to believe in the impossible. "I'm ready," Max said, stepping into the garden. "How do we start?" Lyra smiled. "We begin by opening the gate to everyone. By letting the garden's magic touch more lives, let the belief grow once again in the hearts of all who need it." And so, with a wave of Lyra's hand, the garden's magic expanded beyond its walls. The glow from the flowers began to spill over the borders, reaching the town beyond, then the neighboring villages, and further still. People started to experience glimpses of its magic, whether through the flutter of glowing wings in the corner of their eyes or the soft hum of the wind singing through the trees. The stories, both new and old, took root in people's hearts. Years later, Max became a storyteller, traveling the world and sharing the magic of the Midnight Garden in every way he could, through his books, his speeches, and the tales he whispered to children. The garden remained a place for those who truly believed in the impossible, and while Max was no longer the only one who knew of its wonders, he never stopped being its guardian in spirit. The Midnight Garden, ageless and endless, stood as a beacon for anyone who dared to dream. For those willing to step beyond the ordinary world and into the extraordinary, the gate would always be open. And in that garden, the magic would never fade again.